Luke McLeod is a data solutions lead at dataengine, a data consultancy company. As a solutions lead, he understands the data ecosystem well and uses his understanding to consult and strategize suitable data solutions for clients. Luke's expertise in data adds to his already big and diverse set of skills, of which were developed having worked as a business analyst, management consultant, and as a co-owner of the meatball food truck business. Personally, it was fascinating to talk to Luke, who's had a very different path to end up in the data scene, to a lot of data folks whom I'm used to seeing. As data becomes more and more integrated into our workplaces, I come across more and more people with diverse backgrounds, bringing different and interesting perspectives. In this episode, Luke and I had an extended conversation about owning a food truck business, his path to being a data solutions lead, an overview of the data ecosystem, and even how to cook great meatballs. In the description, I have put the timestamps for each of these topics. If you enjoy listening to long-form conversation with diverse and interesting guests like Luke, consider subscribing to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to this. You can also follow the Instagram page at Everything Goes with Pascal. I post highlight clips on there, and we can also connect there too. This is Everything Goes with Pascal podcast, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Luke McLeod.
Yeah, I just saw you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Posting a podcast, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Cool to see Pascal doing something that's, I don't know, that not many people that I know are doing. And so I hit the like button.
That's when you fell into my trap, Luke.
Yeah. He's like, anybody that likes it, I'll get them on the podcast.
That's my goal, That's my goal. Start with one post, see who like it.
Yeah.
And then interview them. See who likes this one.
It should be interesting.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, this is my first time being on a podcast. So.
First of many, I imagine.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I love talking shit, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're into podcasts too. We were talking about that before.
Yeah. Just the classics, Joe Rogan. I feel like it's almost cliche to like Joe Rogan now.
It's like almost some people's character.
Yeah.
You're like, I listen to Joe Rogan,
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think there's two responses. Either people are like, oh, this guy gets it. Or they're like, oh, fuck, Joe Rogan's just a monkey,
He's a very controversial figure.
Yeah.
That's what I found out.
Which is weird, I think, because he interviews such a broad range of people, It's not always conspiracy theorists or, edge, people on the edge of society with, weird thoughts or anything like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes he's interviewing, respected physicists and that kind of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think I've heard some people or some of my friends who tell me almost warning me about me being a fan of Joe Rogan,
right.
Just making sure because I guess they have their own perception about him and what opinions that he has and the kind of the positions that he stands. But I have to say, so far, that all the people that I got warnings from about Joe Rogan are people who don't listen to him on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to raise, because I find that a lot of people just take what other people say and then add it to their thinking instead of actually engaging with it and then deciding for themselves. I don't know if you saw Chappelle's recent comedy show.
No, I haven't seen it, but I've heard some controversy. With
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I'll put the mic closer, look.
Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
I'm new.
So easy to do.
Yeah, and I guess we watched it in the lockdown, and he definitely makes some, I guess, on the edge jokes about being transgender or whatever. But yeah, I don't want to get too into it. But we watched the whole thing, and I was like, okay, yeah, he's got some interesting ideas there on how it all works, and then loads of people we spoke to were just cancelled. No way, you can't listen to that guy anymore. He's so offensive. Doesn't understand what the struggle is or whatever. And then you're like, oh, did you did you listen to it? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. Well, how'd you come to form this opinion?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how you can't even listen to it or watch it without being tainted by the general consensus of who that person is seen to be in society or whatever.
Yeah. But I think these days is difficult in kind of two senses. The first sense is like there's so much content to consume. So it would be difficult for everyone to, see the news, like headline, Dave Chappelle is racist, Dave Chappelle is offensive, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And then it would be difficult to check every single one of those headlines. But on top of that, I feel like a lot of people are being fed all this kind of news, through so much content that comes out of it. Like, there are shorts explaining why he's a racist.
Yes, yeah.
And there are comments explaining why he's offensive.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking Dave Chappelle as a general person off topic here.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like it's easy to think like, okay, I've seen enough shorts, which is highly curated, as a lot of people know. But when you're watching it for several hours per day, you don't think if it's not even a question to ask if it's curated or not.
Yeah.
It's easy to think like, okay, Joe Rogan, who's a white male, who's bald, who's big.
Yeah.
So he fits the stereotype of certain narrative.
Yeah.
And plus, he's talked to people that fits that narrative, like known for that narrative. So it's easy to kind of box them into things, and therefore box people, who likes them, who enjoys their content in things as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it goes both ways, right? Because you can be curated from, I don't know, I'm going to use general terms here, but like the left, and it's like, yeah, like I guess we'll keep using Joe Rogan as the example. You get all of that confirming information fed to you by shorts, and you're getting all of your other, I guess, news and pop culture updates through this like left filter. But then people that sit on the other side, they're also getting the same stuff, possibly even the same creators, but the shorts are like slanted in a different direction. So they are getting all of the confirming stuff saying like, Jordan Peterson, he's great. Look at these like really practical things that he's telling people, and then like look at Joe Rogan. He knows what's up with the world. Like aliens, UFOs, the ancient apocalypse. Like he's got it on lock. He knows what's up. And then those two people can't like find a middle ground because everything that they're watching and consuming is so like, I guess, seen through one particular lens, and the other person's getting it from the other side. And so I feel like it's really hard to be in the middle these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because I was saying before that all the people that have warned me against, Joe Rogan, are people that don't consume his content on a regular basis. At the same time, my opinion of Joe Rogan that I tell myself is someone who consumes his content on a regular basis. Yeah. So I'm gonna have bias on that sense too, Yeah. So like, because I'm used to seeing him, because I'm used to hearing his opinions, maybe I have a bias on my own.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, you do have to be conscious of your own, what you're thinking, and what are the things that are informing the way that you sort of see the world. Otherwise, otherwise you will get stuck in one of those two sides. Yeah. Where you can't like bridge the gap. And I think, I don't know, like it feels like it's driving a real bad culture, and you can see it playing out in somewhere like the United States quite, I guess, it's happening in a really obvious way for them because, you're a Democrat or a Republican, and there's no mixing. You can't be one way or the other way. You're always one of the two. Yeah. Yeah. And you like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and like all these other sort of like fringe people, or you don't, and like you can't you can't be like, oh, well, I actually like some of Joe Rogan's content.
Yeah.
You know, some of it's not what I'm into. Like, and so you end up with this polarized community, and it's working for the, I guess, the media, you know, conglomerates and the big players in that culture, because when people are divided, they form really strong opinions and attachments to certain stuff, and so they become much easier to, I guess, sell to and convince of particular ideas, because you just have to play them off the other person all of the time, or the other side, and then it stunts our ability to have like an actual discussion around, you know, the real pros and cons of some of the things that are being said. Yeah. And so, I don't know, I feel like it's not so bad in New Zealand at the moment, but it kind of feels like it could be going in that direction. I don't know, what do you think?
I think like the US, the situation is US is almost like kind of the projection of where, you know, in some sense, like New Zealand is headed to, right?
Yeah.
And right now the US being very... Is polarizing the right word? Like you're either blue or red.
I think polarizing is
the right word. Yeah. You're either blue or red. There's no color in between.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the direction we're probably heading into. Yeah. So, you know, but like you said, like when it comes to a lot of things, you know, New Zealand context, national labor, the chances are you're not going to agree with every single one of those policies that Definitely. One party suggests, right? And you vote for a party that you agree with the most, I guess. But I think it's, you know, and when it comes to, you know, break it down into something smaller, just like Joe Rogan, like I like Joe Rogan, but I'm aware that some of the things that he's into, I'm not that into, or some of the things that he believes in, I question a little bit more, you know. One of the ones being the Graham Hancock's what was the younger drives impact theory. So that was super cool theory, and I love listening to the episode. And I haven't watched a documentary on Netflix, but I listened to the Joe Rogan episode with that. And it's super cool, and I enjoy that, and fun to think about. What if that happened? That's such a cool. It fits the narrative, but I did a little bit of research on my own, and it seems like the general consensus is a little bit less likely.
Definitely,
you know, yeah.
I really, in the same way, I really enjoy listening to the conspiracy theory episodes, because it's like fun to imagine, especially the ones like from Graham Hancock, where it's like, oh, imagine if there was an ancient civilization that had all this technology, they had all this cool stuff, and you're like, yeah, that would be really cool. Like, you're like, oh man, it's just fun to think about. And I have watched the Netflix documentary, and it was really entertaining. Like, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I guess, then you're like, oh well, like, what is it actually true? Like, what is he saying actually true? And I watched one of the, I guess on YouTube, like a real classic thing for creators to do is like a debunking kind of series. And there was this sort of young, I guess, archaeology kind of student guy. And his content's all around sort of debunking like ridiculous archaeology claims. And so he brought out this series where he...
Sorry, I just spilled all over. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so he takes every episode of Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse and just goes through it and goes like, here's the actual, you know, archaeology evidence and like what he's saying and how that compares to what's actually thought. And so like a lot of his claims are sort of based in like actual discoveries and things that have come out that are like changing the way archaeology is viewing sort of history, right?
This YouTube guy.
Yeah. And so he's not denying that some of these things have been sort of like figured out, but he's like, yeah, you know, it's when you've got a place where lots of people gather all the time, like there's like layers of things that get discovered, but it's really hard to link those layers together because it could be really separate, I guess, groups of people that lived quite far apart from each other, but because of the geography, it's a good place to hang out. And so a lot of this stuff is just like, oh, like, yeah, it was there, but you can't say for sure that it's the same civilization that's been there the whole time. And he's like, and it doesn't really fit with other civilizations that we've found.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we can't rule it out, but like, also it doesn't really look like it. And so, it's good I feel like it's good to do your own research on those kinds of things.
And that's perfect example of listening to one narrative and you just being sold to that. Because when I just listened to Graham Hancock, I was like, who can argue against this? Who can argue against all these evidences that he has?
Yeah.
And I think the dangerous of that is because I'm not an expert in that. And a lot of people aren't, right? 99% of listeners aren't, right? And they would think they wouldn't have any other questions to ask. They wouldn't know better,
Yes, yeah.
And including me, until I did the research, I'm like, that's true, like you said, like it doesn't have to be one civilization lived there. It could be just, several generations of people that lived there for a long time and accumulated stuff over that. And so that's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I think it's, I put off watching the episode for so long because I just was like, I really want ancient civilizations to be a thing.
Yeah.
But actually, I think the main thing that really sold me on like the anti-Youngest Dryas sort of Graham Hancock theory was the way that he presents it and everything that he talks about all the time. And I think there's a few other sort of people that he hangs out with that also talk about the Younger Dryas event. And so apparently the Youngest Dryas event, obviously massive change to the way the world like was sort of operating at the time. It's like the most studied weather event in like human history. So like people saw it, they were like, oh, something crazy happened there. Let's figure out what's going on. But the way that Graham Hancock talks about it, it's more like kind of like, oh, no one's really explored this yet. But that's not actually the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe for the listeners who haven't listened to the Younger Dryas Impact, do you want to give a quick rundown on the what the theory is?
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be bad. I'm not even close to an expert. But so it was like 10 to 12,000 years ago.
I think 18,000 years ago.
18,000?
Yeah, it might be.
Anyway, it was a long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
And it was there was large sort of ice sheets that covered most of the world. So it was coming off the end of that last ice age. And so most of North America was covered in these big ice sheets that came like really deep into it. And then as the world or the globe sort of heated up, these ice sheets started melting in the middle. And then at some point, the edges broke and then just released a crazy amount of water that just like rushed across, the American continent and like ripped up huge swaths of land and caused the sea to rise by like, I don't know the exact amount, but I think it's like meters. But it was quite a extreme event that happened relatively quickly on like a world scale, But I think the whole event, the sea rising, it took a few years for it to actually rise a lot. So it's not like all the water dumped into the ocean and then all of a sudden everywhere the water just went. It was like over a few years or something like that, but still way quicker than you would normally expect the ocean to rise. And that's as much as I know about it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's reasonably accurate.
And there are a lot of hypotheses in what caused that, right?
Yes.
The cause of that, right? And one of the things that Graham Hancock is claiming that there's a big impact, meteor impact from the space that caused that. And that's so right now where the study is at is that it's a possibility. I think it's one of the hypotheses, but at least the mainstream academia is leaning towards it being just a fun idea rather than being it legitimate. I can't remember what the other hypotheses are, but they're a bit more widely accepted ones. I think one of the things is ocean circulation. It could just be that just the circulation of ocean. Apparently, the event that you described is pretty periodic. So one of the hypotheses is just that it's just an ocean circulation, and that's what caused that.
As in, like just the general warming of the globe.
There's something to do with oceanic circulations that triggered the events that followed.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how much of our climate is linked to the heat exchange that happens in the ocean. I was watching some news, I think this week, and basically the whole ocean is heating up quite quickly right now. But there's this one portion of the ocean, they're calling it the cold blob, which is actually cooling, which is unusual because every other part of the ocean is warming up. And I think it sits between the US and Europe. Is that the Atlantic Ocean there?
Oh,
I think.
Jamie. Put that up, Jamie.
I don't have one of those. No. And so like this portion of the ocean is cooling as opposed to heating up, and then I think they've known about it since like the early 90s, but I think they've only just sort of started to figure out what's going on. It's got something to do with the salination of the water in the area, because Greenland's right there, and it's got all these glaciers on it that are melting quicker and quicker into the ocean, and so it's dumping lots of fresh water into the ocean, which I think sits on the top, and then so it's the relative content of salt in the water is reducing, and that changes the heat exchange. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's causing this particular part of the ocean to cool down as opposed to heat up, which is changing the way that the heat exchange occurs through, I don't know, there's a big loop of it that goes around like the US and down by South America, and then all through there. And so that's supposed to not be great.
Oh, that's not good for the atmosphere? Or?
Well, so apparently, like in order to, I guess, maintain the current sort of climate, that heat exchange is really important. So like it's one of the things that sort of like drives the temperature in those like local areas, and but also like on a global scale, like with the seasons and things. And again, I'm not an expert. I've only sort of like watched these things on YouTube about it. But it's changing the way. It's changing the way that sort of heat is exchanged through the air, from the ocean to the air, but then also through those currents that go around. And I think even the flow of the water, because it's actually like moving underneath, is slowing down because there's I don't know exactly why. It's got something to do with the lower salt content, and the heat exchange doesn't happen correctly, so you don't get as much circulation through that current anymore. And so I think, I can't remember if it's trying to cool the water or heat it up. I don't know enough about it. But anyway, it's supposed to, I guess negatively affect the climate. Yeah.
I feel like if it disturbs the usual, like the standard circulation that it had before, and it's kind of stopping that, doesn't sound good.
No, definitely
doesn't sound good. Is that like, are you into that kind of thing? Looking into that. I haven't met, I guess I haven't met that many Joe Rogan fans, but I haven't met someone else who's into like the younger dryas impact theory.
Oh yeah.
Or like, you know, this kind of thing, you know, like the oceanic circulations and stuff. Are you into that kind of things usually, or?
I don't know. I guess yes. I do watch videos and listen to people talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like to engage in interesting ideas and stuff. So normally I watch like a variety of videos or listen to podcasts around that. Obviously, oh man, now I've forgotten his name. Lex Friedman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big fan of Lex Friedman's podcast. He's always talking to really smart people who are just like experts in their area, and like sometimes it's super technical, like coding and that sort of thing, and I don't really understand. But it's still really interesting to hear like how they think it's going to change the way that, you know, the world works and that sort of thing. So yeah, I suppose, I don't know, I feel like you should be interested in climate change. Like, it feels like something we should all be interested in and have a base understanding of, like, or trying to keep up with the things that are causing climate change and, like, you know, what the impact of those things is going to be, because I guess it's going to affect us, you know, reasonably soon.
Yeah, is that your thinking?
I mean, it's not really my thinking.
Yeah,
it's what I guess that's what the experts.
The experts thinking.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess one of the videos I was watching was they had a climate expert on there, and he was, you know, talking. You don't want the climate to change by 5%, because you know that's going to be, you know, catastrophic, basically. And I guess he compared it to, like, you wouldn't get on a plane that had a 5% chance of crashing.
Yeah,
that's too high a percentage. So if there's a 5% chance of something occurring that's going to, you know, impact the climate negatively, you kind of want to mitigate those things. And so I guess trying to understand what are the things that cause climate change, like, and maybe not the causes so much. I guess we kind of I think we've got an understanding of, like, greenhouse gases, and, you know, there's too much of the sun's radiation that's remaining in the earth for too long is heating ourselves up. But what are the changes that's driving? And so, like, these ocean currents are one of those things. And so I guess trying to figure out, okay, well, if those ocean currents change and our understanding of how that affects the climate is, like, increasing, we get a better understanding of, like, what the impact is going to be.
Yeah.
And then you can better predict, like, when are we going to experience, you know, the oceans rising and, like, extreme temperature change, those kinds of things. So I don't know, it feels important, then we should all know.
I think it's important, and I think a lot of people, including me, who get, you know, us less interested in it, is because right now it's not impacting us immediately.
Totally.
We can get food we want, basically any food we want from the supermarket, as long as we have money.
Yeah.
And you know, day to day there's AC running. The climate's fine and the hot water running, you know. Totally. And I feel like when that starts becoming less and less of a reality, and it's becoming more and more of a luxury, because of the climate change, I feel like that's when the conversation will start. Like, I mean, unfortunately, you know, like, ideally we prevent that from happening, you know, and that never happens. But
yeah, I mean, even like, I'm not a massive environmentalist, you know, like, day to day. And so, like, I'm definitely a massive hypocrite. But yeah, you're right. Like, when things don't impact you sort of immediately, you don't really take them seriously, I think.
Yeah.
It's that whole, like, if you can't see it, it doesn't really exist thing. I guess, like, yeah, so, like, I think there's a fundamental problem for humans are, like, understanding like incremental changes that you're also like compounding. Like I don't think as a species we really sort of like fully grasp what it means for something to move exponentially or to compound on itself. And so it's like, oh, those effects will cause this, you know, and like you get this compounding thing. And then at the same time, we don't have a great ability to, I guess, think longer than our own lifespans. And so you don't really, with those two things added together, you're just like, like if I can't see it and it's not affecting me right now, like who cares? And I think a lot of people know about it and like it's in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
But like you said, if I can still get my food and water and I can have the AC on, then like no worries.
Yeah, and that's interesting what you said about the exponential, like us now understanding exponential, because if we just look at like, you know, short time, you know, being like our lifespan.
Yeah.
If you look at just short time, all we are gonna see is mostly linear.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
So that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, because if you zoom in, if you zoom in on a curve, it does look flat.
Yeah.
The same way that the horizon looks flat when you look at it because you can't.
Because it's flat, right?
Yeah.
It's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's Earth is flat, right?
100%.
I think I heard that on Joe Rogan. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen no proof myself
that it's not.
That it's not.
That
flat.
it's not. Yeah. But and the proof of it being flat is everyday life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Things seem flat to me, and so they must be.
Yeah, must be. Oh, well, that's a separate tangent. That.
Yeah. Let's not dive into that one.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I think the world is round.
Yeah, just to be clear, me too. Me too.
I don't actually think the world's flat.
Yeah, no, we left the tinfoil headset home today.
I'll put it over there.
Yeah, put it. It's behind the camera. It's behind the camera.
We'll put it back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure that the projection we put out to the world is of, socially acceptable people that are adding to society and not rocking the boat too much.
Exactly. Well, it's when I caught up with you recently, look, it was interesting because like we said at the start, I met you on my first day. First day of university, because you're my RA, residential advisor at the University Hall, the first generation, right?
What up?
UH. It's changed so much there, by the way.
I know.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 other massive.
I know, right?
Like halls of residence.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think we had a pretty kind of, at uni at least, like we had a pretty different background. I was studying mathematics.
Yes.
You were studying like commerce, is that right? Commerce property?
Yeah, I did a commerce and property conjoint degree, which is just 2 degrees at the same time.
Yeah.
But property is basically commerce, but like specializing as using property as like an asset. So you kind of, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Reflecting on it now, like just like the application is slightly different, and but I did economics and management as my majors in my commerce degree.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So pretty different backgrounds, but we are kind of now in the same space, which is the data.
That's
which
right,
is it's an industry that I'm working in that I'm interested in, and so when I saw that, I was like. Yeah, well, it's so cool that, like, first of all, so cool that, having very different start versus ending it up in the same industry, as well as, so I thought it would be an interesting conversation to see
how I got
how you got there. Because, I think I was telling you last time that I think you definitely had one of the more interesting kind of the stories that you've told me that I've heard.
Well, I'm glad you think they're interesting.
You don't think so? We'll get into it, but
I guess like you live your own life and you kind of like, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I suppose it has been kind of like, just done a bit of everything really, and then
Exactly.
kind of I guess I didn't end up in the data space. I kind of made a conscious decision to move that way.
Right.
Because I mean, look at what we're doing. You know, like we're using technology to like make a podcast that will be like posted onto the internet for people if they want to consume globally. You know, it could be watched by anybody, and so I think. Like, I guess if you think about making smart career decisions, moving into like the technology and data space is like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
It's the future work environment. And people are going to be utilizing data and technology way more in their day-to-day. And they are already, you know, like, I guess you will... When you post this podcast, you'll go into the back end and you'll review the analytics and you'll see, you know, okay, what time did I post it? How did that compare to the last podcast I did and when I posted that one? And so you're like, I guess content creators as creative people are sort of forced because of the way that you know, digital media is served to people to engage with analytics like on a day-to-day basis, right? And so anyway, long story short, I think that everyday life, data and technology is just getting closer and closer together. And it's the same for the business world and the corporate, you know, the corporate environment. And so that's why I moved into that space.
But I think that even that to me is pretty interesting, because seeing myself and seeing other people's kind of the career progression, or not even necessarily career, but even just a uni and what they study and where they end up with. I see a lot of people. I don't see many people that are quite active about their choices. If that's well, at least when I listen to that, what you just said, it seems like a very proactive choice. You know, you have an idea about where the society is going, and therefore you want to, you know, keep up to date with that, and you want to invest in something that you think will be relevant to the future. Whereas I think a lot of people, you know, I feel like it's not black and white. It's not just either you're proactive or you're not. I think there's kind of the middle ground, and I think you're leaning a bit more towards the proactive side of things. Do you think that?
I guess so. Yeah. Now that you've put it like that, it does line up. I suppose for full transparency, I got into my current role through a recruiter that got in touch with me. But I suppose before I joined a data consulting business. So we do a range of stuff across the data and technology industry. But I came from a management consulting background at KPMG. And even towards the end of my time with KPMG, I was working more with... they called out the Lighthouse team, which is basically just data engineers and data scientists and software developers who, I guess, provide support to help us build models and tools so that we can, I guess, service our clients better. And even when I was at KPMG, I started like moving closer to that team and working with them to like build demand forecasting models that would help us sort of, take that demand forecasting tool, apply it to the client, and then, you know, help them sort of make changes to the way that they were doing things. So yeah, when I got this message from this recruiter, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I should go that way. Like it just feels like that's where everything's heading.
Right.
Yeah. I suppose I do like to look at the future and ponder over what it could look like and how things could change and maybe why we're heading that way. Just because it's interesting, you know. I don't think I don't think I would like to claim that I'm good at it at all. But it's fun to talk about, right? Like imagining what the future could be like, and imagining, how people are going to change and how people will react to that change, and what we should be focusing on. But yeah, definitely. Anyway, back to the question. Yeah, I think I am proactive. I don't think my parents would have thought that about me.
Your parents wouldn't have?
No, I think I give off a quite a easygoing sort of go with the flow kind of vibe, and I think day to day that is how I am. But while I'm doing that, I'm kind of like daydreaming about stuff, thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, like what is AI gonna do? Like, how is that gonna change everything? I was like, I think it's gonna be massive. Is everyone else thinking it's gonna be massive? I don't know, like I was like toddling around doing my stuff and just thinking about that things.
Yeah, I think one of the things, one of the most proactive things that you've done is the big balls.
Oh, the food truck.
The food truck, yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
So I think that's such an interesting story.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start right at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I was working at KPMG, and so before I always struggle with telling stories. I'm like, where do I begin from?
Because you started going back, and you were like, so I was born in
1992.
1992.
In Johannesburg, South Africa. Okay, so I was working at KPMG, sort of like in a middle kind of role, not a junior anymore, but not like a senior person. And we'd been working for like 6 months on this big project, and it was like really hectic, and we were pulling big hours. And then at the same time, I was living in Hanua, which is like an hour train ride from the city. And so I was like commuting from Hanua to the city, because this was before you could do work from home. Like, it was like, you have to be at the office.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny to think that.
Yeah.
And so I'd like commute an hour in. Well, at first I had to drive 20 minutes to the train and then catch that. Then it's like, so by the time I got to work, it was an hour and a half trip.
Yeah.
And then I had to do it in reverse to go
crazy.
home. And so anyway, just really pumping out big hours. And we sort of like closed the project off, and then I went on holiday for 3 weeks, and I came back to work, and I was like, whoa, I was really stressed. I don't like, that was really hard. And then at the same time, I broke up with my long-term girlfriend. So like, I guess I was in this like state of change, where I wasn't dating this girl anymore, and I was kind of realizing that I don't want to work that hard ever again. Maybe on something that I'm really interested in, but definitely not on like supply chain network optimization. You know,
you didn't enjoy that?
It was fun. I think it was good, like learning experience, but it was just a lot, and I was like, oh yeah, like cool to do it, but probably not again. You know?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go traveling. So like first I did like a 2-week trip to India with some friends. And that was like really cool. India is like a really amazing country to visit. It's definitely eye-opening in like terms of like what's happening out in the world. And then I came back and I was like, no, I'm definitely just going to quit and then go traveling. So at the end of like 2019, I booked to go skiing in Canada. And then and I was meeting my current partner, Susie, over there. We were going to go skiing together. I guess at the time we weren't like officially dating or whatever, but obviously there was like something going on.
There's some attractions there. Okay,
like,
okay.
You don't just book a trip to Canada with like your work colleague.
So she was living there, or oh no, she was working with you.
Yeah, we were working together at KPMG.
Yeah.
And then I broke up with my girlfriend. Like we were hanging out a bit, and then she went to go traveling somewhere else, and she was like, "Let's go skiing in Canada."
Yeah.
And so we met up in Canada like 6 months later, and that was like end of 2019, start of 2020.
Yeah.
And as we all know,
that's
when things got bad. But yeah, we did a ski season there, and it was mean, you know, and we were doing a lot of partying, a lot of skiing, and not a lot of watching the news. And then one day, it just was like, oh, COVID's a big deal. And then it was like, oh my God, okay. And then all the mountains that in the area started closing down because of COVID. And we were like, oh, that's weird. And then our mountain closed down, and we were like, oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then the whole world started shutting down. And so I guess me and Susie had like a decision to make, like, do we go back home? Because we'd only just sort of started traveling. The plan was to do like 2 years. We were going to ski in Canada together for a while, and then go our separate ways, and then meet somewhere else and do some stuff. And I had all this money saved up. But then the thing that convinced me to come home was that my mum called me, and she was like basically crying on the phone. And she was like, Luke, what happens if you get stuck over there?
Yeah.
And like the whole world turns to shit, and like everything shuts down.
Yeah.
Like you got to come home. And at the time, me and Susie actually had COVID, so we were like, in bed,
shit!
like, we didn't know it was COVID because there was
Yeah.
no testing. This was in like March 2020. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, we come home. We do MIQ for like 3 weeks.
Oh fuck, the good old days.
Yeah,
Good old
man.
McLeod days.
This was when it was free as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And it was alcohol free, so
What?
we were stuck in a room for 3 weeks with like nothing to do and nothing to drink. It was just like, oh my
What
God.
did you guys do?
Oh, like, so for the first 5 days, we didn't leave the room.
Yeah.
And then this nurse came around, because they had nurses coming around to check out, because they tested us at the airport, and they're like, you guys have COVID, you've got to go to MIQ. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And then so this nurse comes around on the 5th day, and she's like, and obviously I guess we looked a little bit crazy because we'd been in like a tiny room, you know.
Yeah.
And she was like, have you guys been outside recently? And we were like, no, we haven't left the room for 5 days. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, like you guys should be allowed outside.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought we just weren't allowed to leave until COVID was gone.
Right.
And she was like, no, like you're allowed to go outside.
Yeah.
And so we got to go outside the next day for like 20 minutes, and it was like the most joyful experience of my life. I was just like, oh, grass.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, it was like sunshine.
Yeah.
Because we'd been in the winter time as well, so we were like just watching the sun.
Yeah.
And like the aircon's like, and like it was one of those rooms that didn't have a window that you could open.
Yeah.
So it was just like, you know. So we did that for like 3 weeks. And to answer your question, we did like a lot of yoga in the room. So we'd like move all the beds to the side and we'd like do yoga.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would like meditate, because it was like, you run out of things to do. And then we played cards a lot. Okay. Which was bad because I lost every single game.
Yeah?
Susie's much better at...
What did you guys play?
Do you know 500?
No, I don't think so.
It's like a trick collecting game.
Okay.
There's like it's normally a 4-player game, but that you can play like a 2-player variant. And so we were playing that, and I always used to think I was pretty good at cards, but then Susie just smoked me every time. Yeah, I think I won 1 game over the 3-week period. Oh yeah, so we don't play cards anymore.
Right, you've had enough.
Yeah,
you've had enough. But it's good that you guys stayed active, like doing yoga and meditating as well.
Oh man, we would have gone crazy otherwise, because you're only allowed to leave the room once a day. I guess because it was hard logistically to like leave the room, And they didn't give us access cards. And so they were like, if you leave the room, you'll be locked out of your room. You got to stay in there.
Yeah.
And there were all these people trying to like break out of MIQ. So.
Oh yeah, pull the mic closer.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, you can sit back, but you can pull it closer to you. Yeah.
Closer. And so there was all these people trying to break out the whole time. And so there was cops around all the time.
Really?
Yeah. So that they were always worried that you were going to try and like bolt out the gate, which is a funny thing to worry about.
But people have done it, I guess, if they are setting that up.
Yeah. So I think the funny, because normally you're supposed to stay in MIQ for 2 weeks. And in our case, because we came in together, they put us in a room together. But only I came back positive with COVID and Susie came back as negative.
Okay.
But we knew that she had already had it because she was so sick in Canada. She was like in bed, like dying.
Yeah.
And so that I was like, yes, we're about to be released. It's like the 2 weeks are up. I'm just like ready. And the doctor and nurse, or the lady that was like running the facility, they come in and they're like, oh, do you mind if we have like a bit of a conversation? And I was like, yeah, cool. They're gonna give us our release papers. We're gonna get out of here. And so they sit us down. They're like, okay, so here's the deal. Like Luke's completed his 2 week period where he's like gotten rid of COVID. But because Susie, you came back negative, you could have picked it up any point between now and then. So you have to stay an extra week to make up that time. And then they basically said, so you've got an option, like Luke can go home and leave you here by yourself for another week, or it's like he can stay and you guys can keep hanging out for a week. And I mean, in my head, I was like, that doesn't feel like an option. Like you can't just ditch somebody in that environment, I reckon.
It's they're writing like a novel there. It's like a love story kind of novel. What's he gonna choose? Like next episode, find out.
Oh yeah. And so apparently they're doing this for everybody that came in like pairs in like a similar situation. And so obviously I was like, I'll stay for sure. To keep Susie
there you go.
Company,
No wonder you guys are engaged now. Well, can I say that on camera?
Yeah,
okay, cool. Congratulations, Susie and Luke.
Yeah, she. I haven't bought a proper engagement ring for her.
That hasn't happened.
Yeah, and so I'm a bit in the bad books because it's been so long.
That has been long.
Yeah, and I've. Anyway, the long backstory, but I owe her a real engagement ring, which is something I have to work on.
Maybe while she's away, she's away in Sydney.
Yeah, it's just hard to get an engagement. She wants it to be a surprise, but she wants something that's not a regular engagement ring.
Okay.
And so I've like racking my brain on like what to do.
Do you know like the style she likes? Has she dropped some hints?
Yeah, well, that's what I said to her. I was like, I don't want to get you something that's going to be bad. Like, and I was hoping we would do the engagement with the like stand-in ring, and then we could go choose something together.
Yeah.
But she was like, no, I don't like that. I want it to be more romantic than that. And so, which is fair, I suppose. That's like kind of the tradition and the thing. So she sent me a few pictures and I was like, well, just hold off. I'll take these and I'll figure something out. So that's my new plan.
Yeah. I reckon like, us being in the data space, upload all those images and make,
get an AI.
Recommend AI recommend the best ring out of, using all these images.
It's a good idea.
Oh,
that's a really good idea. I might actually take that.
You've got like 2 weeks this gets released. Look,
I get a sprint planning going.
Yeah.
I got to get a product owner in here to manage the milestones.
Yeah, exactly. Get the Trello board running, get some agile.
Yeah, we're running Kanban.
Yeah, so we got sidetracked there. So you were about to be released, but then they were like, make a choice between stay here with
Do you
Susie.
want love or do you want to go home?
The short-term reward of like leaving now and then regretting it later, or long-term reward. And it sounds like you made the smart choice.
Well, I just didn't see it as a real option. I was like, how is this an option? Are people taking this up?
This true love right there.
But I reckon even if it was somebody that I didn't know that, or like, that I was just friends with, I would definitely always stay, because like it feels so shit to be the one that made them, because she was negative, and if we weren't traveling together, she would have just been let go. But because she was with me, she had to come. And then if I left early, she would have had to stay an extra week just because of that. So anyway.
It worked out.
Yeah, so we stayed. But the reason I was telling that story was because there were two friends that were in the same boat, but one of the mates decided that he was going to leave. And we were walking around, and we had this nurse accompanying us, and then this guy was like marching around the sort of the car park looking real mad, and there were these two police officers like following right behind him, like this far behind him. And we were like, what's up with that guy? Why is he being followed by the police? And she was like, oh, his friend left yesterday and he got real pissed off and tried to escape. So now he's got like police protection. Okay, so the real reason that I was talking about that was that me and Susie were back in New Zealand, and we had like, I guess, a decision to make, like what do we want to do with our time while we're here, because we're going to be here for a while. Didn't seem like the sort of the pandemic was like going anywhere overseas. It was like mid 2020, and we basically looked at each other and we were like, oh, I don't want to go back to work, back to the office. Like, we're supposed to be doing something different where we travel and like do something cool. And so we thought we'd try travel around New Zealand, and we looked into buying like a van and doing that up, but it turned out that was just going to cost heaps of money to do. It was going to be expensive. So we were like, maybe we'll start like a business or something. Maybe we'll figure out what we could do. Anyway, we ended up deciding on a food truck, I guess, because we thought it was like low commitment and like easy to sort of start, and then also easy to like wind down if we got sick of it or if we wanted to do something else. But I think in classic sort of Luke fashion, it kind of exploded into this big venture, this big thing, and I was like, oh, we're gonna do this like cool food truck, and so we ended up like building this food truck from scratch, like on this real big trailer. It was way too big. It could have been like a quarter of the size and it achieved the same goal, but we didn't know what we were doing, so it was just like, buy the biggest trailer, put the biggest box on it, like put this window in. And so we spent ages building it, which was cool. And then we got it like professionally painted, and like it looked really nice. And then we spent ages like designing the menu, like what are the recipes we're going to do. And we picked, we sort of like accidentally ended up specializing in meatballs, which is like...
How did that happen?
It's such a like really specific, like too specific thing to like be like, yeah, we're gonna be the meatball food truck.
Yeah, the meatball guys.
Yeah, we're gonna be the meatball food truck. And so I think the way it happened was we were like, what are some foods that there just aren't good versions of in New Zealand? And we were like, maybe sandwiches. We were like, there's no good sandwiches out there. We were like spitballing good sandwiches. And I was like, you know what? I used to like, my favorite Subway sandwich was the meatball.
Meatball's my go-to too. Yeah,
right. It's the best one. And I was like, but I've always thought like they're not good meatballs, and like the sauce is not that great. And so we were like, okay, the first sandwich we make will be like a marinara meatball sandwich. And then we just went down this rabbit hole of like how to make the perfect meatball. And like, to be honest, the meatballs were mean. Like they were real good. And so we spent ages like designing this like meatball. And then we were like, well, why don't we do like a couple different kinds of meatballs? And then all of a sudden we were doing only meatballs. We were like, okay, we'll make a veggie meatball as well. So like a veggie vegan one.
How'd you guys perfect that?
Basically, just watched every single video we could find on like meatballs and like koftas, because koftas are kind of similar.
Oh, okay.
And we just experimented for like, so the whole time we were making the food truck, so about 6 months we were making the food truck, we were also doing recipes.
Yeah.
And so we would just go to the butcher and then we would try things, and then like eventually we were like, okay, well actually we need to buy really high quality meat, so that it was, because like if you get pork and beef from Pack and Save, it's just, and it's the mincemeat, I mean, I think some of that meat might be good, but like the mincemeat was crap. It was just real watery, and like you can't sort of specify like the fat content that needs to go into it, because the thing with meatballs, here's some insider tips.
Meatball facts.
Yeah, some meatball facts. So a good meatball has a good ratio of sort of beef and pork and fat, and the type of fat that you put into it is also really important. So some recipes will use like cream, and then like a fatty cut of pork to sort of achieve that fattiness. But when we cooked our meatballs, all of that good juicy stuff tended to sort of like leak out. And so what we ended up doing, which is also outrageous, we sourced this stuff called, what was it called now? Lardo. Okay. And lardo is cured pig fat.
Right.
So it's about 3 inches of just pure fat.
Yeah.
And it's like got the skin on it still. And it's made in Italy in the same way that you'd cure sort of pancetta or like any of those other sort of cured meats. And what that does is it holds the fat together even when heat's applied to it. Not the whole time. So if you heat it up for long enough, it will just pull out.
Yeah.
But we just diced it up, and then you put it into the meatballs. And so then when you're cooking the meatballs, that like little cube of fat doesn't just melt out of the meatball. It actually like retains in there. And so you get like a really nice juicy meatball. And then when you bite into one of those little lardo pieces, it's like so good. But yeah, so it was like a big experiment, just trying different, I guess, combinations of meat, like cuts of meat, different like fat content, and then eventually we dialed it into like something that really worked for us. I guess one thing that you always have to consider is like what's the local ingredients that you can source. So like what's actually available, because we found it really difficult to sort of replicate like American style recipes, because you didn't have access to all of the ingredients that were there. Okay. And even the lardo was really hard to get a hold of. There was this one place that sold it, and sometimes they didn't have it in stock. Yeah. So we were like ordering. It's like, oh, we don't have any in stock. And you'd be like, oh shit, like what are we gonna do? Yeah. So but by the time that happened, we'd like kind of come up with workarounds for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we just used a different cured meat that was quite fatty.
Right.
But it did change the sort of the flavor profile of the meatball slightly, so you kind of had to like work around it a little bit. But yeah, we got there in the end.
But so was your day-to-day during that period like working on the trailer, and if not, like just trying out different recipes and see what works and rating those?
Yeah, so my parents and Susie's parents just happened to live like reasonably close to each other.
Okay.
Given where they live. So my parents live in Hanua, which is like out in South Auckland, and then Susie's parents lived in Drury. which is also in South Auckland, but it's kind of like across the motorway from each other. So they're about 20-minute drive. And so we would go to my parents' house because my dad is like a handyman kind of guy. He's like got tools, and he's like a real weekend warrior.
Yeah.
We also have a farm, so he's just like fixing stuff all the time. So he has every tool you could ever need to do anything, because he also loves collecting like gadgets and things.
Yeah.
So we'd go there, and there's a big shed, and we could park the trailer in there and then build it, during the day or in the evening. And then if we weren't doing that, then we would be at Susie's house doing the cooking, because her parents had a better kitchen than my parents.
So you really had like the kitchen and the workshop and everything. Like
yeah, we were pretty lucky. But yeah, it was a fun time. But it was like, I guess it was like a testing of our relationship as well.
Yeah, that was.
We hadn't really spent like that much time together.
I was gonna ask. It doesn't sound like that much. Like, so by that point, how long were you guys together?
Like 6 months or something.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it was. But I suppose we had already worked quite closely together at KPMG for a long time.
That's true.
But yeah, it was definitely like, I guess, pushing the envelope on like. But I guess everybody was in lockdown as well, so like you couldn't really go anywhere, and it was like, oh, well, I guess we can hang out because we're already hanging out. Otherwise, you'd be alone at your house the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely like jumping into the deep end.
Yeah. Did you feel that at some points the relationship was tested? Because, starting a venture like that together, right? Even going on trips together is a tough thing.
Yeah.
As a couple. And that sometimes is a make or break.
Yeah.
And, doing something like this together, I feel like it's another whole other level of adventure.
Yeah, I think it definitely was, because I suppose building the food truck and like doing the recipes was pretty like at that point we were really I guess like feeling the pressure of like actually owning the business.
Yeah.
So we were like building the website and like doing the branding and like building up an Instagram as well. And so it was kind of, we weren't really doing I guess the normal work that you would be doing in the food truck yet. And so when we actually ended up doing that, it was a massive test, because it was like, which of us is responsible for which parts of the business, and like who's going to remember to bring the tongs and all the stuff and pack it into the food truck, and like there was a whole lot of things that we didn't anticipate being problems that were actually the biggest pain about like doing a food truck, which was you have to drive everything to somewhere and then set up and then sell and then like pack it all up and move it somewhere else, which is like a benefit and a negative in my opinion. But it's like every time you pack the truck in, you've got to remember to pack everything that you need. And then the first few times we did stuff, it was like, where's this? Where's the tongs? Where's the pan? Did we bring enough stuff for the sauce? And it was just like this, oh my God, like everything was going wrong all of the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, quite stressful. It's like, how do we deal with that? Like, and then I guess Susie's kind of a perfectionist with the food side of things. And I was like, not really. And so we would have like disagreements about like, what quality of food could we actually send out?
Right.
And I was just like, just do it as quick as possible and get it out the door. And Susie was like, no, it's got to be like this. And so we would like, there's like friction in like those kinds of areas where where our values weren't quite aligned on what we were doing. So that was interesting to deal with, but I think we got there in the end.
How did you overcome that?
I think basically that specific problem around, I guess the quality and the care being put into like making the food Susie really cared about it like quite a lot, and I think she cared about it more than I didn't care about it. So I was like, oh well, if you want it done a particular way, just show me exactly how you want it done, and I'll just make sure that I do it to the quality that you expect.
Yeah.
And because I think, I guess Susie's got a different relationship to food than I do. So she wants to make it nice and like do it properly. And like for her, I think culturally as well, like food's quite important. Whereas for me, most of the time I'm eating for sustenance. And like, I'm like, yeah, I need this much food to have that much energy to do those things. And so I'm just like, whatever. If I could, I would, not always, but like sometimes I wish that there was something I could just pop in my mouth and it would just give me everything I need, you know?
Up and go, Luke. Up and go.
Even up and go, like, I just like, they're expensive.
Yeah.
It's like, I want like, I don't know.
I guess sushi is like the closest thing to that.
That's true, yeah.
Kind of that balanced diet and delicious and easy to eat. And yeah.
Yeah, but I think like for me, sometimes even going to get the food, I'm like, I just don't want to, but I know that I'm going to be hungry, and that I need to eat. Like, don't get me wrong, I love going to a nice place and having a good time and eating good food, but I do that kind of like more for the experience, like in those like particular moments. But if I'm not doing that, I'm like, just give me something easy. That's also healthy. I mean, these are all hard asks, but you know.
Yeah.
That's my dream.
Yeah. You want a bit of everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did the food truck for a while.
Yeah. And it was successful.
Yeah, it did pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were getting really good traction towards the end of it. But at the same time, we were like losing the passion.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like the plan was to sell it eventually. And I think we could have. I think we could have sold it to somebody. But you know, there was the traffic light stuff that happened that really sort of ground everything in Auckland to a halt. So yeah, because we were like pretty booked out for that summer, all the way through to winter. We had loads of festivals like on the cards, and it was lining up to be really good. And you know, as we were so booked and had all this like revenue lined up, and I was like, man, this is gonna be great. And then normally what happens is you'd fill in the gaps with like things that come up a bit closer to the time, and then that would bring more money into the business as well. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like we're really getting somewhere. Like once we do this summer, we'll do a bit of work over the winter to keep things going, and then we'll book again another packed summer lineup. And then at that point, this was my plan. I was like, then we'll sell it leading up to that summer period, because the people who take it on will be able to go. We'll be able to sell and say, you've got this much revenue like pre-booked. You're ready to go. Here's the recipes. You don't even have to do anything. Like you just have to show up, cook the food.
Yeah.
Like you're guaranteed to get at least this if you don't do anything. And then go. Here's 2 years of like work that could prove that the business, you know, is good. But then I guess, as you know, there was the traffic lights, the red, yellow, green, and it was a bit chaotic and no one really knew what was going on. So basically the whole calendar got cancelled. And it just was like super demotivating. It was like hard to like, you know, want to do the business after that. But I guess at the same time, like through that period, what we did was we opened up our garage on what's the street called? It leads onto Dom Road. Oh man, I can't remember what. I lived there for a whole year. Anyway, it was like kind of on this like semi-busy road that connected Sandringham to Dominion Road.
Near like Mount Stadium,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Bassett. Was it Bassett? No, it wasn't Bassett. Anyway, this road. And it had a garage that sort of like came directly onto the street.
And was it your flat? At your flat?
Yes,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a flat as we were renting it. As we were kind of doing it undercover without letting the landlord know. Because she was a Chinese lady and like she was quite particular about everything leading up to us getting the flat. And so I was like, there's no way that she'll let us just do it. So we kind of... I was like, we'll seek for forgiveness as opposed to permission. But it was cool. I really liked doing it out of the garage because like we had like particular days where we opened. I was like Wednesdays and Fridays and Saturdays that we did food. And because everyone was working from home and it was lockdown, we did like a pre-ordering system through the website, and we would like pre-sell most of the stuff. And people really liked that it was like this garage that we'd just like open up, and then we put like this, we got this little sign made and we put it up on the top of the garage.
Big balls.
Yeah, Big Balls.
Yeah.
That's right. We haven't said the name yet. As you can tell, like very creative name. It kind of started as a joke, you know, because we were like, we're doing meatballs, it's gonna be big balls.
Big balls.
Big balls. And then we said it so much and referred to it as Big Balls for so long while we were doing the recipes and things that it just became Big Balls. But yeah, so we had this big ball sign up above our garage, and it looked really cool because it's like vines and stuff. And it's kind of like old looking, and then we painted the inside of the garage so it looked nice.
You painted it even?
Yeah, we put like some yellow paint down. Obviously cleaned the whole place up because it was a bit cobwebby and stuff before that. And then we put all of our cooking sort of set up in there and like the gas bottles and things. And then just like kind of started posting funny videos and like about what we were up to during the week. And like we decided we would do like a one item menu. So it's like, this is the item, you can get it in like there's a meat variant but also a veggie variant each time. And so we would do like the meatball sub one week, or we did this chicken burger which was mean. It was like, I think one of the best chicken burgers I've ever had. And people loved that chicken burger. Like I think we still get messages from people asking us when we're going to come back so we can get that chicken burger.
Oh, that's how you know.
Yeah. We've been thinking about bringing it back, but it's so much work.
Yeah.
But maybe one day we'll do like a renaissance, Big Balls renaissance. But that was really cool. That's when our sort of Instagram started taking off, and people really started like connecting with the brand. Because one thing we found out through this was that like having like a fixed location with like a local group really builds like a nice like brand, and people can like connect with it better because it feels like it's something that's theirs and that they know about.
Right.
Whereas when we were doing like the food truck, we were moving from place to place, it was always different people, new people. And so it was really hard to build that connection and build that rapport like with the customer. And so we started getting like more followers, and then the spin-off did an article about us.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. Which was really cool.
And they said it was one of the best burgers in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, and so we were doing really good. And this was sort of over the Christmas, New Year's kind of break, and we thought that the summer would kick off again. And then doing it out of the garage was great, but like we weren't quite making enough money to sort of like make it. It wasn't really sustainable yet. I think if we had like kept going, it would have got there eventually, but it wasn't quite sort of like, you know, paying the bills basically.
Yeah.
And then we had this house that we bought as well, and so we had this like mortgage that we needed to pay. And then Susie was getting quite worried about sort of finances and that kind of stuff. And so she ended up getting a job at this like innovation consulting company, which is really cool. It's a cool place. But it meant that like I had to like take over doing everything. And as we went through before, I wasn't the one that was passionate about the food. And so I think what we did was the wrong thing. We should have kept Susie. We should have kept Susie running the business. And I should have gone back to work.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a decision we made. And it was like, oh, well, Susie can like help me on the weekends, like do stuff. But like she was working like 40-hour weeks again. And it was like hard. And then the summer didn't really do what we wanted it to do, and then like I wasn't really enjoying running the business on my own, because I like the thing that I really liked was that me and Susie did it together. It was like that's what made it enjoyable. It was like a real drag for me to do it on my own. And so we ended up trying to sell it as like a business, but like it was hard because no one wanted to buy anything at the time, because it was like, what's happening with COVID? What's happening with these lockdowns? Like blah, blah, blah. And so basically what we ended up doing was just selling all of the commercial equipment down, and then selling the food truck sort of like just as a shell basically, which was okay because we recouped, I would say, most of what we spent on setting up the business. But we did lose like all of the, I guess, the hard work that we put into sort of building the brand and like creating like a cool sort of food business, which was unfortunate, but like, I mean, it's just the way things go, and then I went back to KPMG after that because I was like, I guess I just need a job. Which is unfair to the KPMG team, because I did enjoy my time while I was there, but it was just the easiest option at the time, was because they needed people and they knew that I was okay at my job. So I went and worked for them. Worked out for the both of you. And after that you were there for a while, and then you joined where you are currently at, which is a data solutions consultancy company. Dataengine? It's called dataengine, or dataengine. I guess depends on how you say it. So we're like a data consulting company basically, and I guess the technology side of it is technologies related to data, and it's mostly around building capability for businesses to sort of do their own analytics and take advantage of the data that they're collecting, so they can do it themselves, and actually, I guess, make data an asset for the business. Because I suppose what we were talking about earlier was that like data is so ubiquitous in the way that we sort of operate as consumers, but also like most successful businesses these days, especially the big ones, they're just they're data-driven companies. They're making decisions based off of like almost real-time information from like their whole operation. And I think there's there's definitely like a gap where you sort of move down from those sort of top-tier companies, and you can see it, like data becomes less and less important to those businesses as you move down, right? And so what we do is we sort of help people across the data journey. So I guess when I think about the data landscape, and let me know what you think because you work here as well, but it kind of starts at the strategy side of things, and that when I say strategy, I mean like your data and technology strategy. So what is your plan, or what are your high level aspirations? I guess strategy is kind of like a vague term, but like what are you planning on doing with your data and technology that's going to enable you as a business to support your overall business strategy, right? Because everything sort of, or it should all ladder down from what are you trying to achieve overall, right? So I guess if you're, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your strategy is to, I don't know, Foot Locker or something, like maybe your stra sell more shoes. It's not a good strategy, but that's your maybe your strategy is to build revenue in a new demographic. So like bring on more 25 to 30-year-olds. Maybe that's like part of your strategic direction. You want to bring in new people to the sneaker craze, right? And so like, okay, well, how, I guess, and then it would be, okay, how are you going to use the data and technology that you've got in your business to support that sort of overall goal and that business strategy? And that's kind of where I see data starting, and definitely where it starts for us at dataengine. And then if you go right to the other side, you've got data products and then also digital products, which are normally enabled through some sort of data set or data's feeding into it. And so data products is a really interesting term, which I've only recently learned about.
I've started hearing it too.
And I guess I'd be interested to hear what you think sort of a data product is.
From what I can see, it's quite at least in the places that it's been used before, it's quite a general term from what I can see. Yeah. So it might even range from like from like building up data pipeline. So, it's just automating the whole flow of getting, extracting and transforming and loading the data onto a platform so that you can use it, to, this machine learning model that's built based on this training data set. So from what I've been kind of digesting as anything that's an end user can use, that's been built based on data set.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of what you think of it as data products?
Definitely. I feel like it's a really good definition, and I might steal it.
You heard it here first, guys.
That's basically what I think it is. It's like a curated set of data, and it can be, any set of data that's gone through some sort of loading and transformation to make it usable for an end user. And so it could be a data set on, I guess if we take the Foot Locker example, like shoe sales in the New Zealand region might be a data set that they've sort of curated and is now available to the business to use and run analytics over the top of it. Another really common data product is customer master data. So a fully curated view of like all of your customers and I guess all the products that they potentially could consume through your business. I think that's like the holy grail. Every business is looking to understand their customer in like what's the buzzword? 360, customer 360 is like the thing everyone's after. So you've got your data products on one end and you've got your data strategy on the other end. And then you've also got digital products, which generally will be enabled by some sort of data set, probably that data product that you've created already. And then sort of everything that happens between that is kind of where dataengine has expertise and I guess can help businesses sort of like extract the best from the data that they're collecting. So whether it's setting up like communities of practice, the operating model that you will wrap around sort of like your technology that will help you create data products and create reports or to do analytics or to create digital apps. And then what else? I guess data architecture is like a big part of what we do. And it's really interesting for me as well because like I guess like fundamentally I understand what data is, but there's so much intricacy that I've been learning over the last like 6 months around like how it all fits together, and that it's like a lot of the time I'm just like recalling information I've just learned, you know, like I've just learned this new thing about how, you know, data modeling works, for instance, like the ELT process.
Yeah. ETL.
Yeah, extract, transform, load, yeah. And so all of that's relatively new to me.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to, I guess, have like a better understanding of like that end-to-end process of like moving from raw data or like that strategy layer to data platforms and like so the cloud infrastructure that supports those data platforms through to like data products, and then like who are the people you need, like what do you need, DevOps people, do you need like data engineers, do you need software developers, do you need a practice around those to like organize them and help them build better processes, do you need to actually set up those processes that help them you know, create those data products, and I guess one thing that's been really interesting is data governance. Is that something you guys have been sort of like talking about here a lot?
Not especially, not too much. Yeah.
Well, I guess one thing that we've really noticed at dataengine is that a lot of New Zealand businesses are they've got the technology, you know, they've got their cloud infrastructure set up, they've got their data platforms, they're sort of collecting data and it's going into these data lakes. And then they've hired sort of data scientists, right? And they've got use cases, they will want to do stuff with this data. And so they've got the data scientists and they're the data engineers and they're trying to solve some sort of problem. But then the projects are failing, right? Because the data that's coming through the system is not good. It's not being cleaned properly. It's not being collected correctly. It's not structured in the right way, and that's making it hard for sort of your projects to be successful, because I guess you've got bad data coming in, which means you've got bad insights coming out the other side, right? And so data governance is like this process and structure that basically helps you to make sure that the end-to-end process of like taking data and collecting it through to like using it and how you model it and how you store it and sort of all of those things is done in a a logical and process-driven way to make sure that as good as you can get it, the data is being curated properly and structured in a logical fashion, so that when you finally get to those projects, you're actually going to get something useful out of it, because you've made sure that at each stage the information that you're collecting and using to run those insights has been stored correctly and modeled correctly so that it's nice and clean.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard that term before, data governance. And I think now that I hear it, I think we have done that. We have done that a little bit. Yeah. Is that different from data engineering?
Yeah, so I guess data engineering is a function that sits within your like data team, right? So I guess if you took like a really big organization, you said, okay, what are the functions that you would normally have in your IT and data and digital teams? You would have like data engineers, data scientists. You might have a data architect, depending on how big you are. There'd be like solution architects. You might have enterprise architects. So many architects. But yeah. And so I guess data engineering is kind of like a role, and they play a part in data governance.
Right.
So if you imagine data governance as like a layer that sits below the whole process.
Okay.
So if you've got your data strategy that exists over here, you've got some way to prioritize projects, and then there's like a delivery team, which would have your data engineers, your DevOps, whoever's needed to like deliver this project. Data governance sits at the bottom to make sure that, from the at each stage you're looking after that data and treating it correctly.
Right.
So you've got policies and rules
Ah.
and processes that sit around that's the delivery process, but also the actually collecting and storing of the data, to make sure that the checks and balances have been put in place so that you haven't done anything like, I guess I'm not a data governance expert, so stretching my knowledge here, but like it's the processes that and the policies and the rules that help you govern the way that you use data so that it remains, I guess, consistent through the delivery process, so that when your project comes out the other side, you've got something useful.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's less of a function and more of like an overarching thing.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Who's so looking at like different people that's involved in, say, like delivering a product, whose responsibility would it be? Would data governance fall under?
Yeah, interesting question. So I wish I had my data architect here. Thanga, she's a data governance whiz. So hopefully I'm saying this correctly. I guess data governance is, have you heard of data stewards?
No.
And data owners?
Data owners, no.
Okay, so in a business, right, you would have your business people who understand how the business works, right? And then you might have your data users, who are people that use the data to run like BI reports or something like that. And then your data stewards are people that understand why the data looks that way in the business context.
Right.
So like, I don't know if we could carry on with the Foot Locker example. They would understand, why the breakdown of revenue is done like on a shoe line basis.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, these are the business reasons why the data is being collected this way. They might not be experts in the actual data or in using it or manipulating it, but they know why they're using it in a particular way. So like you'd have these data stewards, and then you'd have your data architect who would set like they're called there's the logical data model, and then there's a physical data model, and there's a conceptual data model. And so these are, have you heard of like conceptual data models and logical data models and physical data models?
Nah.
So it's basically like the conceptual data model is a way to explain how data should be structured within your organization, and it can be done at like a customer level, or it can be done at a product level. And normally they would be separated out. So if you've got like, I guess, discrete sets of data that are different enough, they would have their own conceptual data models. And then you would have a logical data model that sits underneath that would detail in more specific terms how it's actually going to be laid out in your data lake, sort of in your raw and staged and curated layers. And then your data engineer would be sort of in charge of actually implementing the logical data model. And so then they would do the physical data model, which is the actual implementation of that. And so data governance is kind of like a shared responsibility where the data architect works with, the business to set up business rules that sort of inform how data is captured and how you make sure that, the deduplication process runs correctly, and that you're managing the information or the data that's coming through your business and ending up in that curated layer is representative of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so you'd have your data engineers who help sort of actually implement that. And then you've got your like data stewards, and who would be the business experts that would sort of inform the business need for how the data should be set up. And so they would help, with like policy setting and the business rules that sort of dictate how all that stuff's set up. So it's like, I don't think it's any one person's responsibility.
Yeah.
Because it's a big job.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. To make sure everything's like captured correctly, right? And it's definitely an area where New Zealand businesses haven't historically put a lot of focus, because it's been like, oh, get the tools and like try to do some stuff. And it's like, okay, well, now we're facing these data issues where, we're using basically bad data. So what we're finding is that a lot of people want to go back to the basics, set up the fundamentals, like make sure that everything's being captured into one place, it's being stored correctly, it's being modeled correctly and structured right, so that when you do your projects, they can be successful, basically. And I hope that's not too boring. I feel like I've been rambling.
No, that's interesting, because there's kind of the side of the data that I haven't got too much experience in.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of sides of data that to explore.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because you're involved in the analytics side of things, right?
I'm mostly in the analytics side of things, and through some studying for, like, because by studying for like some certificates, like data, like for me, because we work a lot with Azure.
Yes.
I was studying for Azure Data Engineering Associate Certificate, and through that I learned about like data security, which I knew the practices of but didn't know the ins and outs of, and data governance kind of side of things, and those side of things it just touched upon very slightly, but it's something that I haven't really, I guess, like, as being a part of the data team, we do it implicitly, but it's not something that I've been aware of explicitly. So, and like you said, like the data stewards and data ownership side of things, it's interesting hearing about different sides of things. It's a bit more, business context. Less analytical, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think, because there's like setting up the capability for the business to, I guess, use their data and use their technology correctly. And then there's the actual using of it, right? Which is the analytics and like building out applications, which is sort of that front end side. And then I guess data governance kind of sits at the back end. Like it's the thing that's going to try and make sure everything works the way that you want it to.
I think something like that's really important.
Definitely, yeah. Because it's like, I guess if you're capturing information incorrectly, like the whole point is that something might feed through the process. You get to the other side, you're like, are there some inconsistencies coming through our analytics? It's like, okay, well, your governance process should be able to identify that. Like channel it through your data engineers, your data architects, the data team, basically, and go, okay, well, what's happening here? And then you can find the issue, and then you can correct it. And it might be like input error right at the front end, or it could be some sort of transformation problem that happens or they've changed the front end, or they've changed something in the capturing process, which has changed the way that it feeds into the system, and so now it's being transformed incorrectly. And so and then I guess your data governance process should have identified that before it actually gets there, but nothing's perfect.
Oh, it definitely sounds like you learned a lot by, since you started working at dataengine.
Oh yeah, man, it's been a whirlwind, like getting up to speed. Because how long have you been working here?
I've been here for a year and a half.
Yes.
Yeah, and I had a lot of learning to do, and I feel like I learn every day still,
Totally,
which is a good thing, which is a fun thing, know.
Yeah. Well, because I guess, so my actual role, what I'm supposed to do, and they call me a solution lead consultant.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a mouthful, but what I need to be able to do is like understand at a high level all the bits of the business and how they work, enough to, I guess, have conversations with people and understand, if I hear a particular problem, I can be like, oh, okay, that's kind of like feels like a data governance thing or this, and then I can engage with the correct technical expertise within our team, and they can talk to it in much more detail, in a better way than I can. But that basically means that I really have to get like a broad understanding of like how the whole process works, which has been like I feel like I've been the last 6 months I've just blasted by just, like, every day it's like new thing. I'm sure the same with you with like getting onto Azure for the first time.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There's so much. Like I've seen the Azure, like I've been in there a couple times.
Yeah.
The portal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, I mean, Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world, right? And Azure, arguably one of the biggest cloud platform service in the world, alongside maybe GCP, Google Cloud Platform, and the AWS. Yeah. But I have to say the interface, I feel like they need to sort out the user interface, the usability of it. Because honestly, like I've used it several times. Sometimes I get confused. Like, how do I even go into Data Factory? How do I even go into Databricks? I don't know if I made it hard on purpose or not. I don't know what's going on there. Because honestly, like, look at Power BI. Power BI, one of the most used BI service in the world. And they will benefit so much of it being more usable, less buggy. But I don't know. There's so much little things that you expect it to be a feature, but it's not, or you expect it to do it this one way, but it doesn't do it that way, and it's I get surprised by that. I mean, I hope I'm not burning the bridges to Azure people here, but just some constructive feedback, guys. Just that's the experience that I get, and I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. So I feel like that's something that can be improved on if we wanted to lower the skill floor a little bit, because it is daunting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to bring up because like it is like I've looked at it and like it doesn't make any sense to me, and I guess I've got no real background in it, so I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. But I've watched one of our data architects, she runs like workshops with the university to sort of, I guess, bring industry experience to the data science club at Auckland Uni.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it was with her, like helping her do this workshop, and she walked us through it. And she's like, okay, this is how it works. And so my job was to basically just rote learn the process so that if there were issues with any of the students trying to like do stuff, we could go and like troubleshoot without slowing down like the presentation. It doesn't make any sense. I was like, you've got to click on like this particular button if you want to do this, like opening a resource and then like creating like a workspace, and they're like different, but you can select the workspace from here, but you can't create a new one. The button doesn't work, but it's there, but it doesn't work. And so it definitely feels like the interface there. I don't know if it's a problem with they've just got so much functionality built into that portal that it's actually just impossible to optimize to like, I guess, a customer experience kind of level. Yeah,
I wonder. I almost feel like just because seeing how big they are, seeing what they're capable of, because they're not short of talents there. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're not short of talents there. They're not short of reach to get talents if they need it there, right? Yeah. That's why I think like, is there some reason why it's hard on purpose? I don't know. That's like,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go down the like conspiracy.
This is a tinfoil hat kind of moment, but like.
Pick it back up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess it's been proven, I think it's been proven that most sort of like hardware, I guess Apple, they build obsolescence into the products, right? And they purposefully make it hard to self-repair, those kinds of things, which they're trying to change in Europe at the moment. I think recently they made it a requirement that all phones sold in Europe will now need to come with a battery that you can replace.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, so they're moving to this like, what's it, self-repair. There's like some movement around, the right to repair.
Yeah.
And that means that anybody can fix things. So it's like you don't need specialist knowledge to do it. So yeah, like potentially that it's this like built-in complexity which sort of like narrows the or requires you to take certification
exactly
to get certified to use the product. And I guess if users can get certified and then they sort of pay money for that to get certified, that's revenue. But also like there's like this implicit, if you get certified, it must mean that it's doing something that's worth getting certified for. And so like almost like how in the law profession they limit the number of students that can get into law, right? So that they limit the number of lawyers that come out the other end so that they can keep a lock whether or not it's to maintain the like level of lawyer that's entering the market, or if it's to keep lawyers as like a scarce resource, whatever. In a similar way, they make it complex to use these systems. I'm not saying that's actually what's happening, but like maybe. Yeah. But it seems logical. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, make it scarce, make it less accessible on purpose. So yeah, like you said, people need to get certificates, and that's interesting. Yeah, but this is also coming from me, who's only used Azure and haven't really used like AWS, for example, which is like a competitor, right? I don't know how that compares. Maybe it's really bad over there. Maybe I've been spoiled. And I'm like complaining like a child. Whereas maybe AWS is super bad, and you compare in comparison. I doubt it, but
Yeah, I can't say because I've not seen the AWS platform properly. But I reckon it's probably pretty similar. Because you still need AWS certifications, right? Like, how do you use the platform? How do you use like, all the tools that they've got in the portal? And it feels like a industry decision to. Maybe it wasn't done like that on purpose, but has been built complicated because the people that have used it sort of, their understanding has grown with the system, and so this like unconscious decision to make it complex has just arisen because it was like, oh well, we'll just dump capability onto there. We won't think about too hard because the people that are using it kind of get it already, and that they'll figure it out. And maybe that's like initially drove it in that direction. I don't know.
I wonder. Yeah, because it's such. Yeah, I wonder. Even like studying for certificates. I don't know. Some of the texts that, because they've got like learning modules that you follow to get the certificates. I don't know. I have to say, like, and I love data things, right?
Yeah.
But some of the driest things I've ever read, and I'm sure like someone in Microsoft could have written it bit more easier to read, a bit more accessible, a bit more structured, so that the flow makes sense. That was
I mean, totally. I guess there's only really three of them, right? So you kind of got to use one, and if you want to know how to use it, you got to read this document. And like it says everything in it that it needs to say.
It does say everything.
They're like, what? So basically, like, why bother updating that? Because it's gonna be a pain.
It would be. It is a big job.
Yeah, I think Microsoft does a good job of like building out the ecosystem and locking people into like their tool set.
Yeah.
Because they get like everybody involved with like, Power BI, Microsoft 365. They're easy business tools, and then it's like, oh well, why don't we just use Microsoft Cloud to support all of that because it kind of integrates really easily. So it's just like, don't worry about it.
It does feel nice though. Like once I get my head around it.
Yeah.
And once I get my head around it and clicking away, and I'm like, whoa, like I do feel nice. You know what I mean? Like
I am smart.
I am smart
Yeah,
just because you know where you started from.
Yeah.
And then seeing where you are now, you're clicking away, and you know how to do these things, and you know how to find this button that's hidden like inside like 10 other buttons, you know, and you're like, I am nice with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think like that whole interface that we're talking about, right, is like, okay, well, how do you interact with this digital environment to get it to do stuff that you want it to do, right? Because I guess fundamentally you know what you want it to do.
Yeah.
The tools can do it, like the functionality's there. The thing that's missing is like the ability to actually execute on that. And not because you're missing like intelligence or whatever. It's just like, oh, where do I click?
Yeah.
Where's that button? How do I do that thing? Yeah, because I guess like if you're a trained data scientist or you're a trained data engineer, like you kind of know like how data should flow and like what are the activities that need to occur, but you've got to have the skill to do it in Azure or AWS.
Yeah, that's true.
Or cloud or wherever. But I think that should change relatively soon with like, I guess, AI assistance in that area, right?
Yeah.
Because like the AI could become a domain expert in how to use Azure, and you could say, okay, well, I want to build a model, I want to bring in this sort of data set, and I want it to do these kinds of transformations, and you're just telling, I don't know, Greg, the Azure AI assistant, what to do, and then Greg will go away and click all the buttons for you and like make it all happen. So maybe they were banking on that the whole time.
Maybe. Could be. Because even right now, I ask ChatGPT what to do, you know, some of the things I don't know how to do on Power BI, for example. And it's pretty good. It tells you like what to click, you know, the inputs to put in and things like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not far away from that.
Definitely. Have you noticed ChatGPT getting worse?
ChatGPT getting worse? Nah, I don't like these days.
Yeah. So there's this interesting thing that's happening with these large language models that are, I guess, freely accessible, right? It's called AI drift or data drift.
Okay.
Basically, the large language model is getting too much data or too much bad data. So like, I guess in areas like basic mathematics, it's getting worse at being able to give you the answer because more stupid people are giving it bad, you know, like like feeding it bad information because it's like self-learning and learns on top of what it's, you know, being talked to about, and then it's like reinforcing that stuff. So yeah, when you allow it to I guess have too broad of a knowledge, you can face these issues of like data drift or AI drift, where you'll get more vague or less correct answers because there's too much information available.
Right.
Yeah, it's not specific enough, and so that's one of the like I guess one of the problems or one of the issues, challenges that's facing the sort of like development of these like more general AIs. So I think that currently the thinking is to create domain expertise.
Yeah.
So to use the engine that drives Llama, or use the engine that drives ChatGPT, or use the engine that drives Stable Diffusion, and tune it on specific data. Give it expertise in a particular area. That way, you can limit what its understanding is, and so it can be way more of an expert in a particular area. Yeah. And you can tune it. You can say, this is more correct information. This is correct information. Right. And then that way, you can sort of address that data or AI drift by I guess by creating multiples of the same thing, but it's better at particular activities.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, hey, because that's one of the limitations of AI. It's always limited. It's as good as the data it gets being fed to.
Yeah.
But having said that, though, it's same with people, right? Like if we are told, 2 + 2 is 5 our whole life, we would think that 2 + 2 equals to 5, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic. And how do I guess one thing could be that we find a way for AI to recognize when it's a bad data somehow.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so. And it'd be like in the same way that humans think critically.
Yeah.
You could teach it to have to apply critical thought.
Yeah.
Or to recognize, okay, I've got 10 bits of data. They're all saying 2 + 2 is 4. And then I've got this one dude telling me 2 + 2 = 5. Like, I think we should ignore that one. We'll go with this one here.
Yeah.
And then maybe being able to recognize like, what do you call it? More trusted data sources. So you could be like, well, I've got 100 people telling me it's 5. But actually, this maths professor is saying it's 4. And so,
For sure.
And so maybe we should believe the maths professor. I guess that would be the same way that humans do it, right? Is by you'd learn what is, I guess, who to trust and what information to trust.
It's like Googling something on the web and going to the most trusted site compared to, freeiphone.com.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it's free, then...
If it's free, then might as well grab it.
Oh, put in bank details, okay.
Yeah. No one's tried it. Has anyone tried it?
I can't believe none of my friends are doing this.
Yeah. By the way, we're not sponsored by freeiphone.com. Unless,
Unless free iPhone.
Unless freeiPhones.com is legit.
I might actually buy the domain after this.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's going to go off nowadays on the website.
This is quite a big podcast, isn't it?
It is a big podcast. Everything that goes on here, look, as you saw.
Yeah, it's a big
place.
Place.
Yeah,
big,
it's a huge
energy.
place. My studio.
Yeah.
My studio. How did you find the transition from working at KPMG as a management consultant to being a data solutions lead in your current place?
Yeah, interesting. So I think there are three big changes between what I did at KPMG and what I do at dataengine. So the first one would be the industry, right? So I'm moving into quite a specific industry in the data world, which I didn't have like deep experience in. So I came from more of like an operational background, doing like supply chain work, demand forecasting, supply forecasting, not the actual forecasting, but like, setting up teams and like creating, I guess, operating models and stuff. And so like, I've kind of transferred those skills over to dataengine because there is a component of like process and strategy and prioritization and like process and operate model stuff that we do, and that I can pull my KPMG experience into. But the domain is like completely different, right? So there are things that work both ways and like general how you set teams up, whatever. But yeah, quite a different industry to be focusing on. So it's like getting up to speed with what Azure is, what is AWS, what is Google Cloud, what does an architect do? Why are there 3 different types of architects? Actually, there's more than that. There's and like what are the roles that sit within a data team, and like what do they generally do, and like so there was lots of just figuring out that. So that was a big change, and just I guess my strategy was just listen.
Just listen.
Yeah, I just listened to everything that everyone was saying. I asked lots of questions. I mean, I guess the only way you can really do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was wasn't easy. I guess luckily for me, I tend to take on new information reasonably quickly. But also, once I've sort of decided on something, it kind of becomes the truth to me. And so if I've misheard or like not quite understood properly, but I've decided that I've got it now, then I do a bit of relearning later on.
Yeah.
So the other big thing was that KPMG is a big business, right? It's global, but the New Zealand one is sort of owned locally. So it's a big business with a lot of history, and there's a particular way that they do things. And so there's lots of process. There's the future's sort of set out for you. You know what it's going to look like. Whereas dataengine, I was like the third person employed there in a full-time sort of capacity. They had lots of contractors and things sort of leading up to when I joined. So going from really quite a process-oriented big business to like a small business was quite a big change, because it's a similar environment, right? Like working in like a office on a desktop, like kind of doing the same stuff, but in a small business kind of setting. So I guess similar to what I was doing at Big Balls, where you kind of had to do whatever. You had to do everything. Like, you had to organize it all. But Big Balls was making food and talking to customers, you know, like really quickly and that kind of stuff. Whereas what I'm doing at dataengine is like replying to all of our customers, talking to everybody, you know, like understanding all of the projects that we're working on, not just being able to focus on like one particular project, which is kind of how KPMG worked. You might have 2 or 3 projects, you know, at a push. And so like that shift in, I guess in culture and organizational structure and size, that was a big change. And it just meant, I guess there was less structure at dataengine. I kind of had to figure it out and do everything myself. I wouldn't say less direction from my peers and boss, but like definitely more autonomy, you know, and like an expectation to kind of just give it a go and like be part of all parts of the business.
Yeah.
And then doing that at the same time as learning about the industry. And then the other aspect that's quite different is it was like definitely a more senior position, and I had to get involved with like the front end sales aspect of the business. So part of what I do is like talk to potential new clients or people that want to know a bit more about dataengine, so that they can understand what we do and have a conversation and see what kind of challenges they're facing and how that aligns to sort of the stuff that we do. And so whereas at KPMG, most of my client interaction occurred post sale, so I wasn't really involved in the front end part. But like the project part of it, pretty similar. So those are the 3 major changes. Different size and type of business, the industry change, and then just a general change in like the kind of work that I'm doing, in terms of like I'm delivering projects and delivering work to the client, but also involved in that front end sales part. So trying to wrap my head around all of those different aspects of it, it took a long time, and I think I've only really just sort of got comfortable in it. Yeah.
And do you have any early impressions in terms of your preference? Because it's like working at like you said, very 2 different environments, right?
Yeah.
Because I know some people don't like to work in a big company. You know, they only like smaller companies.
Yeah, it's so I think one thing that dataengine shares with KPMG is it's a consulting style business, right? So we solve other people's problems, and then there's that client aspect of what we do. I'm sure you sort of understand this. You know, you've got clients that you work for as well. So it's like they're quite similar in like what you need to be doing, like what kind of person you need to be successful in that kind of area. Which is like you basically just need to be flexible and know that the client is going to change their mind a lot, and just be okay with the fact that you're going to have a plan, it's going to change, and then it's going to change again. You know, like, and we'll try and manage that and mitigate as much as possible. But you know, things happen, and then I think there are like other small businesses which perhaps are more, they don't sort of do client work. And I think that would be quite nice because you kind of do, you know, you do your regular job. You might work a little bit harder and like work across a few more things, but you don't have that added like client pressure, which I think is a massive part of like the consulting world. Is like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
because it's like that's your customers who you're selling to,
and you're sort of like, you need to be providing them with what they want, or what they need, but you also need to adhere to the original plan and scope to make sure that you deliver what you were supposed to and what you said you were going to, so that you don't blow the budget and that kind of stuff. So whether or not, like, which one do I prefer? I think starting out as a grad or as a junior resource going into KPMG was really good. It set me up with like a lot of, I guess I get to see how it all worked and like how projects functioned, and you know, how to work with clients and what to do when the project starts going wrong and what a really bad project looks like. You know, and so like I'm grateful for that experience. I do like working at dataengine now. I don't know if I would have been set up and capable and ready to dive into this kind of environment as a graduate,
right?
Just because it's still quite unstructured. You know, the business is building the processes and the foundations internally that will lead to an easier to understand and a more coherent business for new people to enter. And so, I think as a graduate, that would have been really overwhelming to be a part of. But it's definitely a cool place to like experience those things and like be part of that like forming of the business. Like how do we want to operate? Like how do we actually want to run this business? You know, what do we want to do? Which is not something you would get at KPMG. Yeah,
I mean, that being like a massive company, right? International company versus somewhere you're joining as the third employee that they've hired, you will have much bigger say in where the company culture and where the company is heading.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really cool. I think for me at this particular moment, like awesome, like really cool to get involved with that. And we are recruiting at the moment for some interns.
So I saw, was it intern? I did see like a job posting on there. So
a grad role. We've got a grad role, an intern role, and we're looking for a solution architect.
That's the one that I saw.
But I think now's the right time for grads and interns to come on because we've kind of got a baseline of what the processes look like. So it's looking pretty good. We've got an office manager now, so she helps with all the admin and stuff. Because before we had her, it was me, Akash, the CEO, and Glenn, the COO, and we were just like manic, you know, like, oh, we got to do this. It's like we're doing this process, like writing reports and stuff, and it was kind of all over the place. But now there's a few more people in the team, and we've had a bit of time to like set up the process and get everything sorted out.
Yeah,
so it's good.
Sounds like you guys are growing.
Yeah,
you guys are growing.
Yeah, we are growing. We are growing really a lot. I think. So I've got a few new clients coming on soon, and well, actually they're onboarded now, and we've got some current clients that have, you know, we've got a really good working relationship with them, and I hopefully, we definitely are delivering a lot of value into them and helping them sort of do what they need to do. Setting up like data platforms, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely growing quickly, and it's cool to have that kind of, I guess, impact on what the business is doing. And that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to join, because I was like, oh, data, digital, that's the thing. And then I was like, but also I'll be able to have an influence on like where we go and what we do. And so that was intriguing for me.
Yeah. What's happening with Cohen? Is it Cohen Outdoors?
Yes. Yeah, you can look at my Cohen.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so interesting.
Because that's like kind of a venture. Because I think the last post on the Big Balls Instagram, which is Big Balls in your mouth. Is that the Instagram tag?
I think it's meatballs in your mouth.
Meatballs in your mouth.
Yeah.
And I think the last tag was that you guys been working on Cohen Outdoors, right?
Yeah, so interesting, Cohen. So during the lockdown, the most recent one, there was nothing going on. We weren't doing food truck stuff because everything was closed. We were kind of bored at home, and we just kind of decided we're going to do this like outdoor brand called Cohen. And long story short, we started importing Snow Peak products into New Zealand, which is like a high-end Japanese outdoor camping and equipment
That's cool,
brand.
Yeah.
And so they've been growing really quickly globally, and so we thought, oh, cool, it'd be good to get like a partnership with them. We can like bring their stuff in and sort of sell it in New Zealand. But it's just been real difficult to carve out time to do that.
Yeah.
I think we were ambitious, thinking that we could do the work that we're doing, because Susie's got quite a demanding job as well. She's also like kind of in consulting, and my work's obviously hectic at the moment because like, you know, it was just us, and now we're growing, and like, yeah, so there's like lots to do all of the time. And so, yeah, I think trying to build a retail business and brand is like a side hustle. It's like, I don't know if it was the best decision, but, you know, we kind of made these decisions and these like purchasing decisions because you got to buy like almost a year in advance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to like secure the stock and stuff. So we placed a few orders, and like things were coming in. And we kind of thought like, oh yeah, we love the outdoors, like it'll be cool. But the thing with retail is you've got to be passionate about selling products to people, or you've got to be passionate about like the product you're selling. And I love going outside and doing outdoor activities, like climbing or, you know, skiing and all that kind of stuff, camping. But I like it. Yeah, I'm definitely not like passionate about like retail and like selling it. And it requires a certain level of like persistence and consistency and I guess drive in order to make it successful. And I don't think as a team that we had all of the elements to make it really successful. So I guess long story short is that we're trying to wind that down at the moment. So we've got all of our Snow Peak gear. We've got some apparel and stuff that we're selling. We're basically, what we're just going to do is just not buy any more stock and sell what's left over. And I think the other thing that made it difficult is that it's a premium product, so it's expensive. And then when you compare that to what's available in New Zealand and like maybe purchasing habits or like the demographics in New Zealand, like the market for these high-end products isn't that big. Yeah. And so you're really competing on like a small group of people. There's not a lot of precedents set in New Zealand for this style of high-end product, as in like high-end camping and outdoor equipment, but also like the clothing is quite expensive. So I think there are a range of factors that went into I guess that not really being the success that we had envisioned it to be. Yeah. And I definitely think it's down to like our lack of effort that we've put into it.
Right.
Because like with Big Balls, it was like full time. We were into it. It was like going really well. And then the pandemic sort of happened. But with Cohen, it's kind of been like, we bought all the stock. We need to sell it. But we're all working like 40-hour weeks. It's hard to like carve out time on the weekends to like do the necessary things to like make it successful. So it's been like definitely an interesting learning experience.
Do you have any next adventure lined up in terms of side hustle?
I've been really. So I was telling you earlier that I've got this. Me and Susie own this apartment on Queen Street. It's like a tiny 30 square meter studio apartment. And I've on the weekends I go there and I do DIY and I've been loving that. So what I would love to do is just make my side hustle just me doing DIY on the weekend.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I really like cutting things. I like, using tools. I don't know.
You like cutting things?
Oh, but I don't know. I feel like I could go to the apartment and I could spend, 12 hours there just toddling around, like, touching stuff up and like doing a bit of this and like researching the best thing to do, and I could do that forever. I feel like really interesting. I really like it. I think maybe because it's so like physical and like tangible, whereas the work I do day to day is quite non-tangible. It's kind of ethereal. It's kind of stuff that happens over there
in the cloud.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe like an influence from your dad too.
Yeah. We used to do DIY all the time when I was a kid, and I really like it because it's like the thing that interested me about Cohen was there was a aesthetic design element to it,
and you like that?
Yeah, I was like, it looks nice. The clothes are cool. Like there's like a Japanese crispness to everything.
Yeah.
And I'm finding with like the DIY or the renovating, like that part of it, which I don't think I knew I would enjoy as much. I've been really like, oh, cool. Like that looks really nice. Like we could put it over here.
Yeah.
And I've been getting into that kind of stuff. So it's cool to, explore that creative side of things a bit more,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, as part of this interview, look.
Yes.
We're just wrapping things up now.
Oh, cool.
Wrapping things up now. But before we end there, I do have the quick segment to finish it off. But before that, it's been awesome hearing like your conversations, look, because like me coming from like a math stats background and through my journey ending up in this data space, like I feel like I've seen mostly people that come from these mathematical statistical backgrounds, who did modeling and then they did like a data like degrees, and then they kind of ended up where they are. So it was really interesting hearing your background, where you come from, and then how you ended up here and the work that you're doing now. It's and like we discussed, you have a very kind of good overview of kind of the data scene and how it links up with everything else. And so it was really interesting hearing about that. And I think a lot of my friends, at least, will find this interesting and super helpful.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you found it interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I guess that's kind of my job what I do is to provide like a different perspective on or a different way to explain the same material, because sometimes people that come from a technical background don't necessarily speak the same language as people that come from sort of a business background.
For sure.
And so, a lot of what I do is like bridging the gap between the two.
Yeah.
So that, your CDOs, your executive staff and your leadership team can sort of understand the data world and how it can be beneficial,
Yeah, and I think the way that we're going, it's gonna be more and more relevant because they're, like I was saying, like we used to only see people in data space from data science bachelors, from like mathematics, statistics bachelors, computer science, but now we're seeing it from everywhere, like yourself. So I think that's gonna be more and more relevant to the coming times, right?
Definitely. I mean, as the digital world sort of collides with everything, it's just going to be, more and more important to
absolutely
have a sort of understanding about how it works.
Yeah, because even in my like little bubble as well, like before you know how to code, you're good to go. But now you're expected to know statistical models. You're expected to maths. You're expected to like communicate with clients. You're expected to know all these more what would be traditionally considered as software engineering or computer science jargons. Now those lines are being more and more blurred, and I think those blurry lines will only get bigger.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think as the sort of technology changes as well, the ability to span across all those things will sort of become easier, right?
Easy, yeah. For sure. Well, thanks, Luke. And if anyone wants to contact you, or do you like to plug any Instagram? Like I think we mentioned the big balls in your mouth, right?
Yeah, meatballs in your mouth.
Meatballs in your mouth.
I think that's our Instagram handle for the Big Balls food truck. Cohen Outdoors, if you're looking for some
outdoors,
high quality Japanese camping equipment and clothing, and then dataengine. I don't think we have a dataengine Instagram.
Yeah, like a LinkedIn.
You can find it on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, dataengine.
Yeah.
Without a space. And then we've got a website as well, which is just dataengine.co.nz.
Yeah.
Those are all my plugs.
And what about are you happy for people to contact you on LinkedIn at all, or is LinkedIn the best place to
100%,
hit you up?
Yeah. If anybody wants to talk to me about anything, as you can tell, I love talking.
You should have your own podcast, Luke.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Yeah?
I think about a lot of things though. So
But you have interesting interests. Like, I mean, we didn't get to talk about it, but your boxing, for example,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
super into boxing once.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a varied, and I think, I just do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So eventually I got a lot of interest. But if anybody does want to contact me, I'm so happy to have a chat. And you can reach out through LinkedIn or through one of the Instagrams. I've got a personal Instagram. If you look up Luke McLeod.
Luke McLeod. Wait, is it just Luke McLeod, one word? I need to look that up.
I can't remember what it is now.
Okay.
If you find me on LinkedIn, that's also good.
Yeah, I'll link everything in the show notes, guys.
Awesome.
So, well, thanks, Luke. And these are some quick fire questions, Luke. Cool. So I've just got 5 quick fire questions.
Nice.
Are you ready? Do
I have to answer fast?
Well, you can think about it. Yeah. You can think about it, but
I'll try answer quick enough.
Let's
match the quickness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so say dataengine disappeared from the universe.
Yes.
And now you're on your own, and you can't get a job. You have to start your own business, right? What would you do?
If I did just start something tomorrow, and data didn't exist, and I couldn't get a job, what would I do? Oh, that's such a hard question. I haven't even thought about this.
And going back to big balls is an option, and working on Cohen Outdoors is an option too.
I think if dataengine disappeared and I couldn't get a job, I might just scrap the corporate world. I feel like it seems to have abandoned me. I'm gonna go. I probably wouldn't go back to big balls because I feel like I've closed that chapter off.
Right.
I don't think I'm passionate about Cohen enough to push that to what it needs to be. And so I think I would probably just go do something really left field. I don't know, I was really into pottery at some point.
Yeah.
And I've been really enjoying sort of like doing the apartment.
Yeah.
So maybe I would like try and do more like DIY and then build like some sort of like little property empire or something. But it's just me, and I go and I fix everything in the house. So it's just like, it's not a big empire. There's like 3. I'm just like toddle away and stuff.
No, that sounds cool. You're into pottery?
Yeah, I've got a pottery wheel at home.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't used it in ages.
That's so cool.
I've been meaning to make some more stuff, but gosh, it's so hard to find time these days. Yeah.
But you have to shape it, and then you have to like put it in the oven and everything, right?
Yeah, you got to have a kiln, so you fire it twice.
Okay.
So you do like one firing to harden the clay, and then you would glaze it.
Yeah.
Unless you don't want to glaze it, but then you would fire it again, and that would set the glaze and stuff.
Yeah. And those fires, you have to go to a place for those, right?
Yeah, so you can buy them.
Okay.
They're very expensive. I think like tens of thousands of dollars, unless you get like an old one. But yeah, I don't think they're that easy to find.
Yeah.
But there is a lady up the road from me that does it. That has a kiln, and I was like,
that's cool.
I was like, okay, cool. I'll make my pottery. I'll go to her.
Yeah.
And she can fire it for me. But yeah, just another side thing.
Wow, that's cool. I've done pottery once.
Oh yeah.
And that was fun.
It's cool.
That was really fun.
I really like how like just tactile it is. You kind of like push it into place, and then you make a thing.
Yeah.
It's quite satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a cool answer. Look.
Okay, good.
Number 2. You recently got engaged. Woo! Your proposal was very successful. Clearly.
Yes.
Because Susie said yes. Do you have any advice for people who are planning to propose?
Yeah, I've got plenty of advice.
Here we go.
Okay, so definitely get the ring organized before the proposal. 100%. Number 1 piece of advice: have that sorted out.
So well in advance.
Yes, well, like at least a couple days before. You want to have the actual ring ready to go. But if you are thinking of doing like some sort of stand-in ring, also have that prepared at least a couple days in advance, because I think I didn't do either of those, and I think although the proposal was really cool and like and obviously somewhat of a success, and what I found is that I haven't done probably what it was necessary in order to do the final bit of get the proper ring involved. But no, some serious advice. I think just make sure you do something that you're comfortable doing. So like I think when you're proposing to somebody that you're in love with, they'll just be stoked, and so you should do something that you are comfortable doing, so that it doesn't get like too, I don't know, so you don't get too nervous. You don't want to like be so nervous that it becomes like a bad thing. Yeah. So I think as long just do it. Just do it. Whatever it is, just do it. And then if the person loves you back, then they won't really care too much, how it all went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was speaking of Lex Friedman, on my way here, I was listening to his podcast with Andrew Huberman.
Oh, yes.
And they were talking about relationship, and they said to find from their experience, the successful relationship that they've seen are the ones that each person involved in the relationship felt 100% about the relationship. What do you think about that?
So the most successful relationships are those that where both people are 100% about the relationship. So they're 100% committed, and they know that the other person's 100% committed, and it goes both ways. Is that kind of?
I think it's more that I don't know about that. Each of them knowing that the other one's 100% committed.
Okay.
But like, for example, like Andrew Huberman had a friend who was in like a long-term happy-as relationship, and talking to him about it, his friend was telling him that he just felt 100%. So not to say that there was no issues or there wasn't every relationship is to have issues, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that everything is perfect or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think it was more that it wasn't described like very technically, but the way it was described was that he felt Andrew's friend felt just 100% about the relationship. Yeah. So, and I think there are a lot of adjectives that could follow that 100%.
Okay, so it's a general feeling of like just 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right to me. I definitely feel 100% about Susie.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident she feels 100% about me.
Yeah.
But I think, when I look at my previous relationship, which is still a longer relationship than the one I've had with Susie, I like, if I actually reflect on that relationship and think about it properly, I definitely wasn't 100% about that relationship.
Right.
And I don't think I was 100% about it for like a lot of it. You know what I mean?
So for a majority of it, you knew you weren't 100%.
Yeah, or like maybe I didn't know explicitly.
Yeah.
But I think that's because I wasn't 100% about it. I think when you are 100% about it, you kind of know. You're like, oh yeah, like this is... And that's why I proposed to Susie, I guess, kind of quickly. I was like, I just think this is it, I don't expect anything better. That's a funny way to put it, but like, yeah, I think so. And I think, definitely it's only going to work if both of you feel that way.
Yeah.
Because I think I've definitely heard of people being blindsided, being broken up out of the blue. And potentially I did that to my ex-girlfriend. I don't think so. I reckon she knew that that things weren't great. Or if she didn't, then she was blind or something. But yeah, definitely. I think and I think when I look at my parents as well, like they seem like they're 100% about each other. Yeah.
Oh well, there you go. Yeah, 2 more data points. To say that. That's interesting. Because I mean, obviously, you guys are engaged, so you are in a happy relationship. And to hear you say that is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thank you for your advice, Luke.
Hey, no worries.
So you do a bit of boxing, Luke, and even had a fight, which you won.
Yep. That's right. Yep.
For you, who is the GOAT, and who is the most exciting to watch right now? Because there are a lot of boxing going on, even the top level, but also the KSI, Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, those ones. Who's most exciting and who's the GOAT?
Yeah, so I guess of the boxing world, to be honest, I don't watch heaps of boxing, but I do watch enough to, I guess, maybe form an opinion. I think, who's the most exciting to watch at the moment? I really liked I think Usyk. He is the current one of the belts. There's 2 of them. WBA or I can't remember. Champion, heavyweight champion.
Okay.
And I really like his story because he came up the weight class through like the middle and light, and then up to heavyweight, and was just the best, you know, so good. He'd beaten everybody. He's got all of the belts and the weight grade below the heavyweight. Undeniably the GOAT of that weight class at least. And then he like not a huge dude, like but then he came up a grade and he was like fighting all these dudes. And then there was one of the guys, AJ, a UK boxer, also a heavyweight. He was trying to fight Tyson Fury, and they were trying to have like this thing. Tyson Fury had just beaten Deontay Wilder like 2 or 3 times by now, or he was just about to do it. And then Usyk was coming up through the heavyweight, like knocking out all these big dudes.
Yeah.
Maybe not knocking out, but like beating them. And everyone was like, there's no way that Usyk can beat one of the top dudes, right?
Yeah.
There's no way. He's just too small, like rah, rah, rah. And he got a fight with AJ.
Is it Anthony Joshua?
Anthony Joshua,
Okay, yeah.
And so it was cool to watch him beat Anthony Joshua.
He beat him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because no one thought he was going to do it. They were like, there's no way. Like, Joshua's like too big.
Yeah,
like,
he's huge.
Yeah. And Usyk beat him. And then they had a rematch.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, he's going to come back and he'll win it again. He'll win the belt back. They're talking about Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
And then Usyk beat him again. And it's just like, it was just so good to see him like come through, obviously be super talented.
Yeah.
And so good at boxing that like the size disadvantage like didn't make, like, obviously had an impact on how the fight went, but like he was still good enough to win.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting boxer to watch.
Yeah.
Usyk. I'm hoping that he'll fight Tyson Fury one day.
Yeah.
Because Tyson Fury is also like an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And the GOAT, who's the GOAT? I mean, there's like Floyd Mayweather, obviously like undefeated. He's also a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Because he came from like this brawler kind of style where he just punched hard and like really like went for it. And then he's kind of matured into this like super tactical defensive boxer that's like impossible to beat.
Yeah.
I think people would call him the GOAT. I'll just go for it. I don't think I know enough about boxing to like...
Floyd?
Yeah.
What about Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson is an animal.
Yeah.
That guy's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he went to prison for a while and then he came out and he was just like... every time he fights, it looks like he's going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and he did beat a bunch of really good boxers. Another boxer I like is the British guy. What's his name? He had the dreadlocks. I think he beat Mike Tyson as well.
Oh, shit.
I don't know.
It's an older guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I can see his face in my head. Lennox Lewis.
Okay.
Lennox Lewis is also really cool. Because he's like this British dude with like dreadlocks.
Yeah.
And like he speaks like a British man. And he's just like a really calculated boxer.
Yeah.
And he definitely beat Mike Tyson. I think he beat Mike Tyson out of Tyson's prime though.
Right.
But still.
Yeah.
And he beat, I think David Tua also tried to fight Mike Tyson. Lennox Lewis.
Okay.
But he got pounded.
Yeah. So okay. So Usyk for the most exciting. And
I liked his story.
Yeah.
And then maybe Floyd for the GOAT.
Floyd for the GOAT.
Just as a safe bet, I think. Like it'd be hard. But, yeah, people got the opinions, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, he's undefeated, and he's up there, right? He's up there as a GOAT talk. So, well, thank you, Luke, for the answer. And number 4,
yes.
Now that the big balls doesn't exist anymore, where is your favorite food place?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know if I've got a favorite food place. I'm trying to think who I want to shout out. Who's doing good stuff? I went to this ramen place the other day on what street is it? I think Albert Street.
Okay.
Bottom of Albert Street. It's called Ichiban Ramen.
Okay.
It's not the franchise one that exists in Sylvia Park. It's this little one just in town, in this little thing. And I think it's the most authentic miso ramen I've had in New Zealand. Like it was top notch. And I went to Japan recently, and so we went there for dinner and with my sister, and I was like, wow, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like I think as authentic as you can get in New Zealand, I reckon.
That's awesome. Ichiban ramen.
Ichiban ramen on the bottom of the CBD around, I think it's Albert Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is another ramen place just 1 minute from here, Tonkotsu Ramen.
Oh, yes.
Have you been there?
I don't know if I've been to Tonkotsu.
I think it's called Tonkotsu. I think it's on the other side of this building, and it's and that also feels really authentic. It's a smaller place, run by Japanese, and just the vibe over there feels super authentic.
I might have to give it a go. I love ramen.
Yeah, I love ramen too. So yeah, I'll have to give the Ichiban ramen go.
Yeah, definitely. They're
tonkotsu
ramen, just the actual dish.
Yeah.
Also delicious.
Okay. Well, the big balls have to come back for a pop up.
Yeah,
as a pop up.
Something at some point.
Yeah.
It'll be a long break between. We'll have to do a few practice rounds to get our brush all the rust off.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we were saying earlier at the start, I've known you for 11 years, Luke, because I first met you in 2012. Looking back at yourself back then, so for 2012 Luke.
Yeah.
What's something you have learned through all these years?
I mean, I've learned a lot of things, but I think one thing that I try to always keep in the back of my mind, or to try to always hold on to, is that life's not that serious, For most people, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe it's a bit of a privileged thing to say, because some people they don't have the luxury of not taking things seriously. But I think a lot of people out there are stressing about things that they don't need to stress about, and really worried about work or family stuff, or there's, and I think it doesn't need to be serious. Just don't worry about it so much. And that's not to say that you'd don't put the required effort in, or slack off, or don't listen to people. But it's I guess don't forget to have a laugh on the way.
Right.
Yeah. Try to have a bit of fun. Otherwise it's going to be a dreary, dreary life. Yeah.
Is there a learned lesson?
I think so, but based off observation, right?
Yeah.
I think I've seen a lot of people, older people, who maybe have taken the serious approach, and then other people who have taken a bit more of the lighthearted approach. And I think I align to that lightheartedness a bit more than the serious one. I suppose some people are a bit more serious by nature, but yeah, take it easy. Cut yourself some slack,
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything perfect every time. Yeah. Oh, maybe this is actually it. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. That's actually one thing I do a lot. And the thing, what I'm saying there is, I heard somebody say it at some point, but it's if it's worth doing, you should do it, even if it's gonna be a bad job, you know. So like,
Right.
I guess maybe brushing your teeth would be a good example. It's good to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
So it's better to brush them properly, but what's better than not brushing them? Brushing them a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing a bad job of it.
Right, right.
Because like at least you've done something. Yeah.
Isn't there a saying, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well?
Yeah.
Is that so? You've kind of put a spin on that.
Yeah, it's definitely stealing it from somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, and this is how the other person explained it, was like, it kind of, when you put the pressure on to do it properly every single time, you don't allow yourself space for failure or for a bad version of it, because you're like, you know, like, presumably you're going to get better and better at a podcast hosting, right? But you think it's worthwhile you pursuing the podcast thing, so it's worth doing a bad job of podcasting, you know, because if you do it again, you do it better and better and better, right? So like, anything that's worth doing is worth doing badly, because doing it at all is better than not doing it.
That's true.
Right? Yeah,
that's true. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Luke.
Awesome.
And there was a really interesting conversation, and I think that's a perfect quote to end it on. You know?
Yeah, cut the first bit.
Yeah. I'll have both on. It's a good quote to end it on.
Nice.
So yeah, guys, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. You heard it here first from Luke McLeod.
Yeah, it's definitely on something somewhere else. So if you listen to this first, then it was me.
Yeah, it was him. Yeah. Otherwise, if you heard it from somewhere else, then it was there, and then translated by.
I guess it depends.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, thanks, Luke, and let's get out of here.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. See ya. Bye.
Bye.